Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod. And of course, I could not do it without the Hall of Famer himself, the master of the $1 million dream, Ted DiBiase. Ted, what's going on, man?
Hey, Marcus, it's you, buddy. Looking forward to today and whatever you got for me.
I've cooked up something pretty special with the help of our friends on social media. It's our 10th edition of Ask Ted Anything today, where we put the listeners in charge of the show and let them ask you questions. Yeah, it should be fun. So, guys, please keep your questions rolling in. You can post them to Ted's social media at MDM Ted DiBiase on all platforms. How about the show's social media? That would work too at Ted DiBiase Pod. Or a lot of folks like to send me private messages on Twitter to make sure that their questions get asked. You can feel free to do that. You can reach me at Marcus P. D'Angelo on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. As always, we will continue to build these questions up and roll the ones that we miss over from episode to episode. So you got to catch the next episode if you want to see if your question got asked, which is a way that I get people to tune back in again, Ted. So that's my tactic. Before we jump in, I need to remind you guys to get over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@ Everybody's Got a Pod, and get subscribed right now. You know, we've got tons of great clips. We have full episodes over there. And now we have 2 Hall of Famers sharing that page. Jim Duggan, as I've mentioned, is part of the team. We do a bi-monthly podcast exclusively on our YouTube channel called The Hacksaw Hour. Also, Jim provides videos of his day-to-day life. And earlier this week, we just posted a video of Jim showing you his Hacksaw's green chili slow cooker recipe. So, guys, it's something else, and it looks delicious. So
I'd like to see that.
Dad, I'll send you the link because he and Deborah cook up some
Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the cook. Are you kidding me?
Right. And it looks delicious. He says it smells amazing, so I think I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah.
Also, guys, Ted and I have YouTube exclusive clips there that we put up once a week. And these are stories you are not going to hear on the show. So get over there, get subscribed, support our show, and enjoy some great content. It's youtube.com/@ Everybody's Got a Pod. All right, man, you ready to jump into these?
I'm ready. Let's go. Fire when ready.
All right, here we go. First up, we've got Clint Allerton, who asks, when you did your vignettes, did you have a script to go by? Such as when you received your $1 million belt, you went way over the top with describing the belt. It was awesome. Virgil was in the background, not even cracking a smile, which made it even better. Anyways, did anyone tell you what to say, or was it all from the hip?
You know, the way I always did everything is kind of like, because everything became so scripted. I said, you know, you can give me the script, but I'm not going to, I'm going to read the script to give me the basic idea of what you want here, but I'm going to do it my way. It's going to come out and it's going to sound like the $1 Million Man, as everybody knew me. And so that's usually the way I did things like that. And I never had any problem with it. So yeah, it's kind of like, they gave me an idea and they told me again, be way over the top about describing how beautiful the belt was and all that stuff. And I think I did a pretty good job.
It's crazy to see that stuff because, we hear about actors who, like, even they, if anything goes wrong, they want their script to be just so, and, no real ability to improvise. But here you are, you're just a wrestler, but you guys are entertainers, and, you can take it to the next level. It's pretty incredible stuff.
Well, and that's one of the things that Vince liked about me. He says, Ted, you're very articulate. He says, you come across, very well. And so that's a gift. That's just a gift from doing interviews, the old school way for so long. It's like, in the body of wrestling, it's okay. What's I would say, okay, what are the people seeing? Now, what's the last thing that people saw in the arena? And now kind of like just as an example, let's say that I'm having a match like with Jake, and I keep sliding out of the ring and leaving and rolling back in to break the count, and then and then basically and maybe just even walking away, and they count me out. So Jake wins, but he wins by what? By default, right?
Mhm.
So Jake then will come back and he says, "Okay, DiBiase, you ran last time like a dog." He says, "But this time you're not going to be able to run because there's going to be a cage up around the ring." And of course, being the heel that I am, I rant and rave and throw a fit about that because that's the last thing I want, right? And so there's that gives you an idea, and then I would just roll with that. And anyway.
And week to week, yeah, you can make that part of your story and part of your promos. And what else is cool, for me as I go back and watch all of your footage for research and stuff. It's interesting because I grew up on the $1 Million Man like so many other fans, and
Yeah.
I got to see you as everybody calls it, a chicken shit heel, where it's like
Yeah.
you're begging off, and I saw that version of Ted DiBiase.
Yeah.
Now, as I'm getting to watch your stuff in Georgia and Mid South, I'm like, so Ted wasn't always the chicken shit heel. Sometimes you were the badass heel, and it was pretty fun stuff.
Yeah. But here's the thing: when you're the chicken shit heel, it never ends. It's like the people never get tired of seeing somebody kick your ass.
Mhm.
Because that's just it. It's kind of like a bully. That's what I was. I was like a bully. It's like I told my boys when they were very young. I said, "You're going to run into people in life." And he says, "You're going to." And I said, 99% of all the bullies you see are cowards.
Yep.
And he says, they talk real big, but if you go ahead and confront them and tell them, "Okay, you know what? You want a piece of me? Let's go." Then they start backing down because they really don't want to go. They just want to appear to be what they are. And so, and it's like, and my dad said that too. He says, and he said, "Son, here's the deal. If, a lot of times they'll just back down. If they don't back down and you get in a fight, you'll either win the fight or you might get your butt kicked." He says, "But that bully's never going to bother you again." And I said, "Why?" He says, "Because he knows you're willing to fight."
Yep.
There it is.
But it is funny, because and I think you've talked about this before on the show where you said like the chicken shit heel, nobody's ever gonna like a chicken shit heel. They're always gonna be a heel. Nobody wants to root for that guy. But when you're a badass heel, it's like I saw that promo where you were talking to Tommy Rich about being Mr. R, and you said, "Not only am I gonna take that mask off, I'm gonna take your head off with it." When I heard that line, I was like, that's a pretty cool line. Like, I like this guy. I don't
Yeah.
care that he's mean. He's fun, and that's how like Stone Cold got over. So yeah, it's
Well,
interesting.
and that's the deal. And like Stone Cold was. I mean, he was a kick-ass heel.
Hmm.
But again, if you're a kick-ass, this is the truth. If you're a kick-ass heel, ultimately you're going to be a babyface because everybody loves a tough guy. Everybody loves somebody who stands up for what they believe and doesn't back down from anything. And so you might start off being a bully, but again, if you're the chicken shit heel, then like nobody gets tired of seeing that guy get his ass kicked. But when you're like the Stone Cold kind of heel, like you talk big and you back it up. Well, that again, and what happened to Stone Cold? Eventually, the fans turned him babyface.
Yep.
So
the fans will never turn you if you're being a coward and backing off all the time.
No.
I like it. Alex,
and that's the best kind of heel to be. It really is.
I absolutely agree. Well, Stone Cold made an awful lot of money after being the badass heel, but I don't think he was ever really a heel to begin with. If you kind of look back at it, kind of like Jake, where like Jake was a badass heel. The fans turned him,
Yeah.
but when he was a baby face, he was still doing heel shit, like pulling a snake out of a bag and degrading a guy after you beat him is a pretty heel move, but he did it all the time.
Yeah, but by that time he had endeared himself to the crowd.
Yep.
Now the fans were wanting to see him put the snake on somebody. Put the snake on that heel.
Man, it's good stuff. Alex Littleton is up next. If you could be a wrestler in your prime in any era, which era would you choose and who would you feud with? So, Ted, a lot of folks will ask you who you would wrestle from today's wrestling, but what if you could wrestle anybody from absolutely any era?
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of somebody that I admired enough, but never really got the chance to work with them. That's hard. Like one of the guys. This way. I only had one match with Ricky Steamboat.
That's it.
But Ricky Steamboat was one of the best performers I ever worked with. I would have loved to have had an ongoing storyline with Ricky Steamboat because he was so good. He was that good. But I'm just, if I think of something, I'll regurgitate
it. Names that jump off to me, would be guys like, as you said, from kind of like the older generation, like a guy like, did you ever work with Killer Kowalski or Danny Hodge or anybody like that?
Well, no, I never worked with Kowalski, but I did wrestle Danny Hodge.
How was that?
And Danny was great. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, Danny Hodge, legitimately. I mean, he had. I mean, the thing about Danny Hodge. You give him an apple, and he can crush it in his hands. Give him a brand new pair of pliers, and he can snap them. I mean, he had this unbelievable strength, and they said something about extra tendons or something in his wrist.
Yep.
But I mean, it wasn't a work. It was legit. And so he's a guy that I got to work with, but I was kind of like, he's the one guy you don't want to piss off.
And he wasn't a huge guy either, was he?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't very big, and he was a national amateur champion in wrestling.
That's a bad dude.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and when you looked at Danny Hodge, you'd say, "Oh man, that guy couldn't break a stick." Yeah, well, he could break your arm.
Boy, if he snatched you up, you'd be in a lot of trouble. And what's cool is there's footage out there, I think it's on YouTube, of him, even as like an older man, somebody hands him an apple and he just pulps it. And it's like this old guy he just grabs an apple and just obliterates it. It's like, oh my gosh.
And one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet too.
Yep.
Thank God.
All right. So actually, Hugh Chambers has got a related question that I put here. So we'll see if there's another kind of related answer here. He says, what's a match Ted had that fans might be surprised to know about? So Ted, as we discussed, you've worked with guys from over the years, many different eras, all kinds of different walks of life. So do any in particular stand out as especially interesting? Like, did you wrestle somebody that maybe fans would be surprised to hear about, like a Buddy Rogers or somebody like that?
Okay. Remember J.J. Dillon?
Yeah.
Okay. J.J. Dillon, I mean, most fans remember him as a manager.
Yes.
Correct? But the first time I saw J.J. Dillon, he was a wrestler. And he was a heel, and he was a heck of a heel. And I probably had one of my very first matches in this little bit, kind of a little side angle with him in a place called San Angelo. I was a referee, And, I was refereeing a match between him and somebody and Terry and Dory Funk Jr. And they did, the Funks win and they leave, and then Dylan goes off on me, and then that now I'm gonna get in the ring with this guy, 1-on-1, and that was pretty scary thing. But I mean, he was so good in terms of, like I had just been a referee. I grew up in the business, but and respected the business so much. It's like, the last thing I want to do is screw up. And he guided me through a match. We had a match, and it ended up where the Funks, came out to my aid, and it left me looking good, and it didn't take any heat off him. It actually put more heat on him. So, but yeah, he was one of those guys that most people only ever knew him as a manager. But, back in those days when I first started in the business in 74, 75, JJ Dillon was he was kind of like a cowboy.
How about that?
Yeah.
Interesting to picture him as a cowboy, but not, I've heard from a couple guys, maybe I want to say Aaron Anderson said that he's one of the greatest bump takers you've ever seen. He said even when he was a manager, he was just a bumping machine.
Yeah. Yeah. And on the same, and a great guy, I mean, personality, just great.
Higher Primate is up next. He says, what do you think are the top worst real injuries that you have seen during your wrestling career? So not necessarily that you got, but that you've witnessed.
Oh my gosh. It's like nothing comes to mind. So I obviously didn't ever see anything that was so horrible. It was entrenched in my mind forever.
You never saw anybody kind of get their arm rolled over on or their knee or anything awful like that?
I just can't. No, I can't. I'm sorry, guys. I can't think of any.
Well, hey, that's a good thing, man.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah.
You don't need to be seeing any scarring shit while you're out there just trying to work. Have you ever seen the footage of Sid breaking his leg in WCW? This would have been in early 2001.
Was I there?
You were not with the company anymore, but I mean, this is one of those videos. It's so nasty that it's made the rounds on the internet forever.
Well, okay. You know what? I have seen that, but I wasn't there to see it.
Okay, you saw
that. I have seen the footage, and it's like, oh, that's ugly.
Oh gosh, what easily the worst injury I've ever seen in the ring. Yeah. And I've watched an awful lot of wrestling footage over the years. Yeah. Holy smokes, man, just awful. All right, the Mauve Maniac asks, did WWE ever think of putting you and Mr. Perfect together as a team? That would have been a great team.
I don't know. That was never discussed.
Man, that could have worked.
Yeah, that could have been a good team.
Do you know if you ever even when he was Kurt Hennig, did you ever step in the ring with him or never?
No.
Wow.
No. Yeah, and but oh yeah, I mean, like me though, a special blonde only because we again, like two guys who both came from a wrestling family. Like Henning, Jake, and I can't think of anybody else right off the top of my head. Romero. You remember the Romeros?
The name rings a bell.
Yeah. Now there was Ricky Romero was a very famous Mexican wrestler in Amarillo, but he just stayed there. He never left Amarillo, and because of that, I mean, as good as he was, he just didn't want to move. but going somewhere else would have made him more money and what have you. But he just stayed in Amarillo, and he was a good-looking guy, and he had sons that followed him. But there's one son that followed him. His name was Steve, and Steve and I were friends. Matter of fact, I think the first couple of times I got in the ring and started to learn how to take bumps and stuff, I was with Steve in Amarillo, and actually, there's the sports arena where they held the wrestling matches. That's, until the only time that it wasn't specifically for wrestling was when the fair came to town, and they would move the ring out of there and they would put stuff in there. But the rest of the time, the Amarillo Sports Arena was, because that ring was permanent. It was up all the time. And so we went in there a couple of times with nobody else in it or around, and I started to learn how to take the bumps and stuff with Steve.
How about that?
Yeah.
Now, I did want to ask you too about Kurt Hennig, because he's hailed as one of those guys who's just this incredible ring technician. I've heard you mention Ricky Steamboat and Bret Hart as being these guys that are, just next level guys you would have loved to have had a program with. If you had to choose one of the three, program with Hennig, Hart, or Steamboat, who's your selection?
Probably Steamboat.
Wow.
Yeah. Probably Steamboat. He was just that good. Watching him, and I watched him. I admired his work, like as a guy, watching another wrestler. I admired his work from afar, and then when we actually had that opportunity, we tore the house down. We didn't go out there, and it was kind of like, even today, it's like, and I don't want to take anything away from, there are some guys, and I haven't really, because I don't watch regularly, and I don't because I get upset because it's so poor. Mm-hmm. But there are a couple of guys, now coming along that, that show a lot of potential. And they're the top guys. But here's my point. When I watch these guys on TV, it's not a story like we told stories. You know what I'm saying? It was like every match was a story. It might be a short story, but it was a story nonetheless. Now I just see, I see guys just getting in the ring and bouncing all over the ring. Taking a turnbuckle and, backdrop and give up, and they go backwards out of the ring over the top rope, and they hit the floor and they jump up like a bunny, like nothing's happened to them. They get back in the ring.
If that's not going to hurt you, then how can the fans believe that somebody's finishing maneuver is going to hurt you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's the guys look more like they're having a tumbling match.
Hearing you talk about Steamboat also made me think about he and Ric Flair had these classic matches in 1989 with WCW, and man, it would have been really cool to see you in a position to have a series of matches with Steamboat and build a story with him.
Well, and again, and Rick, Rick and I only got to wrestle each other a couple of times, now I think at one time I know he was the NWA World Champion.
I know you guys worked in Mid-South.
Worked in Mid-South, and I think we did an hour Broadway. He was the champ, and I was the top guy, and I don't know if I was a babyface then or not. But him being, I probably was a babyface, because usually the only place that the NWA champion was a babyface was in his home territory. Mm-hmm. Like Dory Funk Jr. and Terry, in all the other territories, they were heels. But when they were back in the Amarillo territory, they were babyfaces, and they would work with the top heel. Man,
well, one of these days we're gonna watch the Ric Flair match here on the show, and
I'm sorry I forgot to mention Rick. Oh my gosh, are you kidding? Yeah, I mean, he's right up there with Steamboat.
Man,
yeah,
something special.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, if you want to give your significant other something special, you've got to check out Blue Chew. Let's take a minute to discuss these guys because, brother, they are where it's at. Are you ready to perform with the confidence of the $1 million man in the bedroom? Are you ready to leave your partner feeling like $1 million bucks? You ready to get that rascal so hard you could go hunting with it? If the answer to those questions is yes, it's time for you to give Blue Chew a try. Blue Chew can help you increase your performance and regain that old confidence where it counts. Ted, how important is confidence when you're performing?
yeah.
I'm talking about your ring work. I don't know. What you're thinking about.
Well, in both cases, it's very important.
You know, Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so that you can plan ahead or be ready when the opportunity arises, if you will. The process is
the
simple.
opportunity arises.
If you will. That's my best Dusty I can do.
Oh my gosh.
Guys, the process is simple. You just sign up at bluechew.com. You consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And the best part, it's all done online, so you can forget about those visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. They come to you. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package, but there won't be anything discreet about your package. Men everywhere have never been more excited to see their mail carrier arrive because when your package has arrived, your package has arrived. Listen, I know what your next question is going to be. Will it actually work? Why don't you try it for free and find out for yourself? Something free from the $1 million man? That's right. And you can try it right now for free. All you have to do is pay $5 shipping. Place your order now and give your partner a very pleasant surprise. Women are attracted to confidence, and Blue Chew can help give you confidence where it counts. Don't wait any longer. It's time to chew it and do it. Take advantage of our special deal. Again, you can try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code EGAP at checkout. That's just $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo code EGAP to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. All right, with that, we're back in action, Ted.
Oh my gosh, that was stiff.
I should have been doing these reads with you earlier. That's a gold mine. All right, ad-free shows researcher and my friend Andrew Hermes has two questions. Whose idea was it to change the outfitting of the $1 million man, meaning from the traditional black and white and green suits? Can you tell us about the designer?
You know, they had one suit made for me, and it was okay. I mean, it wasn't really well done, but it had all of the ingredients. I mean, of the look. You know, big dollar sign on the back and everything. But I found somebody else. I found somebody local, and showed them what I had, and told them what I wanted, and the next suits, you know, and everything after that looked really good. And I think, you know, I had black and gold, I had a green and whatever. I even think I had a silver,
yeah,
and
the white one, which I think you still have in your possession, right?
I had a white and gold one, and I wore it at when we did Wembley.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I can't remember wearing it too much because, you know, it's kind of like, it was a really good looking suit, but, you know, bad guys don't look good in white.
That's true. That's true. I never even put that together.
Yeah.
And actually, they just released a new action figure of you in the white suit, which is go and pick one up and bring it to Ted. He'll sign it for you at one of his signings. And Ted, when you first arrived with the WWF and they say like, hey, yeah, here's a suit. You're going to be wearing this to the ring, probably taking bumps in it occasionally, stuff like that. How did you feel about it? Were you like, oh, man, I got to wear a hot suit in this?
Well, I mean, the deal about the suit was the only time it's like I wore it It was kind of like instead of like a ring jacket, I had a ring suit.
Mm-hmm.
And I would wear that into the ring. The deal was, Virgil was always there, and he would take the top coat off, and I had and the front was it wasn't a full shirt. It was just just around the neck, and I'd pop that off, and then he would take the front, and the pants were hemmed all the way down, and so he would just pop the pants off of me too. So there I was. With my tights on, with great big dollar signs on them.
Boy, that would have been the spot for the Blue Chew ad right there. We messed the whole thing up. Did you have to travel with this suit as well?
Oh yeah, it went everywhere I did, and I got to where I could pack it, and the material was made out. It was flexible enough that it wouldn't stay, like wrinkled, if you will.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so it wasn't that hard. I just packed it in a big bag.
Now, you're wearing this suit, and you're not wearing a shirt, so I'd imagine that you sweat into this thing. How often were you getting it cleaned? How did you get it cleaned?
All I did to, obviously whatever I had on the road, and at any given time, I wore it every night to the ring, just like a guy would wear his ring jacket.
Yeah.
The suit was my ring jacket, and so then after, like back when we were doing, when it got to be 10 on, 3 off, 4 on, 3 off. Well, every time I'd go home, I would send one to the cleaners, and I would take a different one with me.
Andrew's got another question. He said, do you believe there was a time in your career when you were a better heel than when you worked with Hogan? If so, when and where was it? Or was your best heel work, do you feel it was when you were feuding with Hogan?
Working with Hogan, I adapted to his style, and that's what a good heel does.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I couldn't have a Ricky Steamboat match with Hulk Hogan. And because of his persona and all of that, I worked his fashion, and I worked, and had no trouble with him, and he really enjoyed working with me as well, because that was it. It's kind of like I would get really good heat on him. I would obviously put over all his strength and power out and all that stuff at the beginning of the match, and then I would cut him off and get real good heat on him, and then let him start hulking up, as they call it, and make that big comeback on me and beat me. A good heel had to be capable of adapting to whoever he's working with. Now, and I never had to have a match with Andre the Giant. Andre and I ended up being, he was my tag team partner. Now, I will say this, me and Andre, we're a heel team, but in the course of a match, because Andre is who he was, and he was so big, well, who was going to take most of the bumps? Me.
Yep.
Who was going to do most of the flying around the ring? When it came to the baby faces doing their big comeback, that would have to be me. And that was okay with me, because I was Andre's partner, and I was getting paid very well for that.
Pretty good spot to be in, getting a team up with Andre.
Yeah.
And certainly better than working against him, especially you as a heel, because it's, how do you get heat on a guy that's that size? That's a hell of a challenge.
Yeah, but again, to Andre's credit, I have seen him in matches where he did, and he could sell. It was kind of like you would get him. You would put over all of his power and stuff, and like you lock up with him, and he just shoves you off like a fly, and you hit the turnbuckle, and then you come back and you try it again, and he just and and it's like you back up in the corner, and the referee says break, and and then you try to turnbuckle him, and he won't even come out of the turn, and then he takes you and reverses it. You go into the end of the turnbuckle, and you come back out, and he hits you with a big clothesline or backdrop or whatever. You eventually do something where he goes to throw you a clothesline, and you duck under it and come behind him and hit him like at the bend of his knee from behind. Well, that makes him go to a knee. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's the giant, but he's down on one knee. And then you get him to where he's on both his knees. Now he's on his knees, and because he's Andre the Giant, you're not exactly, face to face, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now you got him in a position where you can now you can do something to him.
You've got him vulnerable.
Yeah.
Interesting. Ted, did you ever hear the whole thing about Vince not wanting to call it pro wrestling on TV, or call his workers wrestlers? He always referred to them as sports entertainers or superstars, and he would call the product sports entertainment. So
Yeah,
have you heard of that? And what do you make of it?
Yeah, that's the way he was. And he always wanted to be something like more acceptable. It's kind of like wrestling is the bastard child of the entertainment industry,
Mm-hmm.
right? Wrestling, circus act, right? Yeah. Well, no, and that's what Vince was trying to do, was make wrestling more acceptable. And that's why he went and said, don't call it this, don't call it that. It's a sports entertainment.
Now, the other thing about Vince that I've been hearing is that whenever somebody is on commentary and Vince would be on the headset, if he heard you use a pronoun, refer to a wrestler as he or him or her, he did not like it. He wanted you to call them, like if you're calling a match with Razor Ramon, you say Razor Ramon getting covered by Shawn Michaels. You don't say, oh, Shawn Michaels is covering him. You know what I mean? Did you ever hear that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I get that, like he's doing this or no, who's doing that,
Got to be specific.
Yeah.
I kind of get it too. And look, a lot of people criticize it and say, oh, Vince hates wrestling and he doesn't like that he's involved in wrestling. He wants to make it something else. However, he did make it something else. He made it one of the biggest entertainment properties in the world. So,
well, thank you. Exactly. Yeah. He did make it something, it was kind of like, and I've thought about that myself. I said, if Vince had not come along and did what he did, I think pro wrestling would have died, because there is so many other things competing for the entertainment dollar. Vince made wrestling into something that was, bigger than life.
He did. And, I think a lot of people hear that and they're like, I wouldn't have died. The territories would have continued. Well,
no.
What would have happened, do you think, in the 90s, instead of getting that giant boom that we got in pro wrestling where, merchandise was everywhere. Everybody got to see it all the time. It was, guys were getting movie work, stuff like that. Now you're talking about regional territories. I think they would have died off. I think people would have lost interest in television.
Exactly. And that's what would have happened. Kid you not, that's what would have happened. That's where wrestling would have gone, because, back in that, again, when I got into wrestling, okay, you were getting to be where you had more, my first memory of television, there were 3 channels: ABC, NBC, and CBS, and those were the only 3 channels you had. And then later, you got a few more channels. But now, oh my gosh. I mean, it's like Katie bar the door, select what you want. But again, in the scheme of things, where would wrestling have landed in there?
Hard to say. It may not have.
It was, it was kind of like, it's, and when you look back at, when you go and you look at some of the like the taped wrestling shows that we did in studios and compare that to the shows Vince put on, where you've got a coliseum full of fans instead of like there's two rows of there's two sets of bleachers. You got to, and the camera's over here, and all your fans are in those two sets of bleachers.
Yep.
There's maybe 70 or 100 people in this little studio when you're doing your TV show. Well, that would have died. It'd have been gone.
No question.
No question.
I think a good way to look at what wrestling would have become if it had not become a big part of mainstream entertainment is look at the circus. The circus used to be a really big thing back in the day where families would plan around it and they would go out and see it. And yep, circuses still exist and they're still a thing. They're not anywhere near as big as they used to be because now you get to see that stuff on TV. You can see animals on TV or on YouTube or whatever. I think that yep, wrestling would probably still exist, but it wouldn't be making any money, and it would be very, very small and very sporadic as to when and how you could see it.
Yeah. Well, and I guess I would liken that to some of these independent wrestling organizations. There's I don't know how many there are, but I mean, somebody goes out and buys a ring and gets a bunch of guys, and all of a sudden he's promoting wrestling when he doesn't personally know what the hell he's doing.
Right. And that's the other thing.
Yeah, little shows like that. No.
And yeah, it's the popularity of the WWF helped independent wrestling because look, I don't think a lot of kids are asking their parents to go see independent wrestling unless they're getting really entertained by Hulk Hogan and these guys.
Right.
So boy, it could have been a whole different world. Vince McMahon has certainly got a lot of faults as we've discussed here, but he changed the world of wrestling forever.
He did. He certainly did that.
All right, Billy Davies is up next. Everybody wants to say Flair or HBK, but who does Ted think is the greatest in-ring worker of all time?
Oh my gosh.
That's a huge question. So much ground to cover.
Flair or HBK?
Everybody always says it's those two, but I don't know. It's there's a lot to select from. Was there ever a guy that you saw that you're like, now that's the guy?
I don't think there's any one guy that you could say, okay, he's the GOAT. There's none like him. I mean, I think there are several, and I think Ric Flair is in that. I think that Ricky Steamboat is in that. What was
Shawn Michaels?
Shawn Michaels certainly was part of that, and a lot of that too is the time frame of when they were wrestling, and who they were wrestling, and how strong their characters became. Bret Hart, again, another guy who, like me, I don't know if anybody put me in there, but I have a lot of people. I mean, I do a lot of Comic-Cons and stuff like that, and then every day they come up, Ted, you were one of the greatest heels of all time.
Yep.
I said, well, thank you very much, and I appreciate it. So, but I don't think you can. There's so many. There's just that'd be like saying who's the greatest football player of all time? Who's the GOAT? There's not. I mean, it's like, quarterbacks. Oh my gosh, I can name you 4 or 5 of them right off the top of my head that are, Joe Montana, Roger Staubach. Let's go. Who else?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady,
I think it depends on your perspective.
They're all goats.
It depends on your perspective too, because Tom Brady's maybe the greatest quarterback of all time with winning championships and stuff, but maybe that's not what you view as what's great. Maybe somebody like Lawrence Taylor is the greatest of all time to you because you view getting sacks and playing really incredible defenses being it. So it's all a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
Johnny Kirsch, I think is how you say it, is up next. Did Ted ever work with Dutch Mantel? What did you think of him?
Dutch Mantel, I might have worked with him one time. I can't even remember where it was, but it was good. We had a decent match. It wasn't like it wasn't Katie bar bar the door or burn the house down or whatever, but it was okay, you know. And I think he was a good character. I mean, had the big mustache, and he almost what was that? He almost looked like the cartoon character.
Oh, like Yosemite Sam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he does. And yeah, capable worker. Yeah, I'm sure you did fine out there with him.
yeah.
Well, we've got another greatest question, pretty common one. I don't know if you've answered it on the show here yet. Jake B asks, "Who's the greatest tag team of all time and why?" Anybody stand out for you, Ted?
Oh, shoot.
Again, there's so many. It's a matter of perspective, right?
Yeah, it is a matter of perspective. Mike Rotunda and I, we really weren't together long enough. I mean, we were a tag team, and we were World Wrestling Entertainment's tag team champions for a while. But I don't think that's like the greatest accomplishment of my career is not, and again, Mike and I are good friends to this day, and I think we were a good team. But I don't think I'll tell you a team I'd put in there, the Freebirds.
There you go.
And they were together a long time. Yeah, for a long time. I mean, I think that combination started with Mid-South. Michael Hayes and Buddy Roberts and
Bam Bam.
And Bam Bam, yeah.
Yeah, they were fun, and they operate under Freebird rules too, which means you don't know which pairing you're gonna get if you get into a tag team match with them, which was always a really cool concept.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a lot of people like to point to like the Hart Foundation or Arn and Tully. A lot of people say the Road Warriors, who are not exactly technicians out there.
Well, yeah, well, again, based on their success, they were. They were good. But yeah, the team you just mentioned, Arn and Tully. What was that? The Four Horsemen.
Yeah, and then they came to the WWF as the Brain Busters for a little bit.
Yeah. Those guys were great.
Man, probably my personal favorite tag team, Arn and Tully, just because they were just technical marvels out there. They were just fun to watch.
Yeah. Oh, I'll give you a big tag team: Stan Hansen and Ted DiBiase.
There you go. Now that's a hell of a tag team.
Yeah, and we were the All Japan Pro Wrestling World Tag Team Champions.
That's one that a lot of fans bring up, and they say, when are you going to talk about Stan and Ted? And, look, I'm trying to do like a slow build up to this thing because it's awesome, and I want to watch all of it. I don't want to give away all the great shit right out of the gate. So we'll get there. Don't worry, folks. It's coming.
Okay.
All right. Isaac Becker is up next. What did Ted think of Abdullah the Butcher? You get a lot of time around Abby.
You know what? I was around Abby more in Japan than anywhere, because Abby was a big name in Japan. And, of course, a guy his size, there wasn't a whole lot he could do, but his psychology was very good. His understanding of wrestling was very good. I mean, so based on what he knew his character was and what he could do and what he couldn't do, he had it down pretty good. And he made a lot of money in Japan. Yeah, he probably made more money in Japan than he did anywhere. Abdullah the Butcher was a big name in Japan.
What did you think about all the gore and like the fork and the scars on his head, and like what was your take on all that?
Well, it was unique to him. But getting the juice was usually everybody said red turns green. The red blood turns into green money. And when you would build an event, and things like that, You know, and I don't know if you can see him. I have little bitty scars that are still, you can't see him anymore. But Abdullah, you know, like, you know, you would cut this way, right? Because it goes with the lines in your forehead.
Uh-huh.
Abby went this way, up and down, and he had this big blade on his, and he would just go, and it's like it got to where looked like he had a crater in his head. It did. It was ugly, but it was Abby. It was him, and in his era and in his way, you know, he was a great performer.
That finishes us up for today. We will roll the remaining questions over, and there's plenty left, so we're gonna have plenty to cover. But we want you to bring us more questions. Again, you can send them to Ted on his social media. It's MDM Ted DiBiase on all platforms. Also, follow the podcast at Ted DiBiase Pod on all platforms. You can ask your questions there, or again, you can DM me on Twitter at Marcus P. D'Angelo. Ted, I love doing these with you. It's always a blast, and I'll look forward to talking to you again here next week, my friend.
I can't wait. And again, before I go, just have to remind everybody that everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
We'll see you guys next time right here on Everybody's Got a Pod.